If you have watched my videos, I do lots of street photography on this channel, either during the daytime or night street photography using this Canon M50 camera. And there are a few comments on some of the videos on what settings I'm using or how do I shoot during this street photography. So for this video guys, I'll be sharing to you my camera settings and probably will give you some tips to do better in street photography. So please stick around. What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Hems. For today's video, I'll be sharing to you some photography tips on street photography settings. And if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing. This channel is all about photography. I do like street photography, landscape photography, and do some tutorial stuff as well. So please consider subscribing and be part of the community. Okay, first of all, I would like to say that these camera settings that I'll be sharing to you are my camera settings. I know there are few videos out there telling you these are the best Canon M50 photography settings, but actually they're just giving you all the options based on the manual of this camera. But for this video, I'll be sharing to you my settings to all of my street photography. It's either you can follow or just a guideline for your street photography. To begin with the settings, in photography, there is so-called the exposure triangle, which is the shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. So if you're a beginner in photography or just started your photography, I would suggest you should learn or know first these three exposure triangle. What are the effects if you are adjusting these three items? Because it's quite easy for you to understand if I'm giving you my settings. For those who are in photography for a while and want to start in street photography and other street photography genres, then it will be easier for you to understand what I am talking about these camera settings. Okay, to start with the camera settings on the Canon M50, I am always shooting in manual mode. This is the letter M on your camera mode dial. You just turn your mode dial to M, which is manual. So all the time I'm using manual only. I know there are AV and TV, which is aperture priority and shutter speed priority, but I'm not using it. I'm just using the manual mode because you have the full control of the exposure settings of your camera. For the image quality setting, I always shoot in RAW only. I'm not shooting the RAW plus JPEG because there are some photographers using the RAW plus JPEG, but for myself, I just shoot RAW because anyway, I'm editing my photos in Lightroom or Photoshop. So I'm not using the JPEG. It will just add some delay during your exporting your photos to Lightroom, and if you just add your memory cards also. So for me, I just shoot in RAW format. And for the ISO setting, I just set my camera to auto ISO. Yes, auto ISO. And in the camera also, there is a setting that you can set to what is the maximum ISO that you can set. For my style, I'm just set to 6400 because for me, beyond ISO 6400, the Canon M50 already struggling. The noise level is quite high and the image is, for me, not usable anymore. And for the aperture settings, this is one of the settings that you need to change on the fly during your photo shoot because for me, it depends on the subject that you are shooting. Like if there's a human being involved, like portraits, candid portraits, I always shoot wide open. Like if the lens is 1.8 or f2, I always set on the fly my aperture to wide open. But if you're shooting like buildings or a structure, I normally set to f4 to f8 because at this setting you can assure your subject is sharp all the way. So this aperture setting you should change on the fly. And for the shutter speed settings, again, this is one of the settings that you need to change on the fly during your street photography shoot. And it also depends on the availability of the light. Like if you're shooting during the daytime, most likely you will have no issue. Like for myself, I'm shooting like 1/250th of a second, even reach to 1/2000 of a second, especially if I'm shooting like portraits, candid portraits. But during the night time or you're doing night street photography is totally different. You should shoot in a very low shutter speed, because like the Canon M50 doesn't have the in-body image stabilization, and like for example this lens also doesn't have the image stabilization. So you should practice and understand or know your capabilities to handheld the camera. Like for myself, I can still shoot at 1/60th or 1/80th of a second and still get quite sharp and low noise photos. So it depends on you. You should practice, especially during night street photography. Moving on, for the white balance, I just set my camera to auto white balance. Yes, auto white balance only because Canon M50, in my experience, has a very good auto white balance detection. And anyhow, I'm shooting in RAW and I can always set or change the proper white balance during the post-processing. Another setting is the drive mode. Most of the time during day or night street photography, I always set this to single shooting mode. There's only one type of shooting that you need. For me, I need continuous shooting mode. This is the panning shot, because for panning shot, you need to follow the subject in very slow shutter speed, and you need, for me, continuous shooting is recommended to get a sharp shot of this kind of shooting. To continue, few camera setting tips that I can share to you guys is, first is the image review option. You just turn this one off because it will delay your shooting, because during the image review the camera will pause because it will show the photo that you have taken. So perhaps most likely you will, if there's an epic moment, then most likely like you will miss that moment to shoot. So just turn it off. And another thing is the AF point size, like the AF frame. I just select to the smaller one, because especially when I'm shooting like still life or close-up photos, I want to nail the focus of that particular part of the subject that should be in focus. So small AF point is better for this kind of shoot. And finally guys, one of the best feature of this Canon M50 camera for street photography is the touch shutter and the touch to focus function. During my street photography, if you watch my videos, I use the touch to focus function like 70 or 80% of the time, because the touch to focus of this camera is quite accurate. So I'm using it all the time. But for the touch shutter, I'm only using this when I know that I have only one opportunity to shoot the candid photography or candid portraits of a stranger, because on the fly I will click this touch shutter enabled and straight away shoot the candid scene or this candid moment, because if the second time around when they notice me, I know they will turn around and I cannot get the photo already. So touch shutter, you must need to practice when to use it. And for me, for candid street shots, especially portraits, touch shutter is very useful. So that's it guys, that's my camera settings on doing street photography. I hope it can help in your photography as well if you're planning to do street photography. And if you still have some questions, feel free to leave a comments in the comment section. And if you like this video guys, please help to click the thumbs up button. And once again, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and click the notification bell icon so that you will be notified on my next upload. So until then, see you in my next video. Peace.